Hello, everyone. I think we are live on all platforms. Let me check. Hey, everyone. So we are live. I have started my lives again. I'm Carol Williams with Williams Immigration from a boutique immigration law firm here in what is usually sunny South Florida, although it's quite cloudy today with a little bit of rain, but that's all right. We are still here having fun. So it's been a little while since I've been live, so I wanted to come back and say hello and answer questions that you all may have, and let you know about a little something fun that I'm doing for Labor Day. But first, y'all all know I like to give just a little bit of an update, a little something for you so that you are still informed about what's happening in the immigration world. So y'all know that I go live Monday mornings on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook. And so we've all heard about the parole in place for those folks that entered the U.S. unlawfully, but are now married to U.S. citizens. So we had it, and now it's kind of paused. I guess that's the best way to say it. So they accepted those applications starting August 19th, and then roughly a week later, out of a federal court in Texas, there was a lawsuit filed, and the federal judge in Texas basically put a pause on that. So what that means is we can still file the applications. It's just that USCIS cannot actually process the applications. So essentially, we can file them, USCIS can take them in, they can receive them in, but then they go on a shelf, essentially. So we're just kind of waiting to see what will happen for the first hearing. So we'll see what happens, but fingers crossed they will bring that back in full force so that we can continue filing and getting USCIS to adjudicate those for us. And you all are welcome, as you know, if you've ever been on one of my lives before, you're welcome to put your questions in the comments, and we will go through them as best we can. The other thing that I wanted to talk to y'all about today are really two other things. One are naturalization applications. I've been getting a lot of calls and started working with people on their naturalization applications. So those are their applications to become U.S. citizens. I suspect it is because of the upcoming election, but we'll see what happens. But something that some of my clients are struggling with is tracking all of their travel. So if you are a current green card holder and you are married to a U.S. citizen, you only have to have been a green card holder for 3 years, and that includes your conditional permanent residence time as well. You only have to be a green card holder for 3 years before you can apply for naturalization. If you are not married to a U.S. citizen, then you have to wait 5 years before you can apply for your U.S. citizenship. All fine, well, and good. The tricky part is you must show that either half of your 3-year period or half of your 5-year period, you were physically in the U.S. Really, the best evidence of that is what's going on in your passport. What are the stamps in your passport saying to us? If you are traveling to places that don't stamp your passport, or you have lost your passport, or you're just not quite sure what all of your travel has been because you travel a lot, that is something that we really need to sit down and really go through and maybe get a little bit creative sometimes. I've had clients, actually I have a client now, we're looking through their frequent flyer accounts to see when they were in and out of the country because they fly so often. So if you do not meet that physical presence requirement, either half of the 3 years or half of the 5 years, then you are not going to qualify for U.S. citizenship. So that is something that you want to really take a look at, and that is something that we can certainly help you look at, but that is something that you want to be really keenly aware of, is how much time have you traveled outside of the U.S., either in the past 3 or the past 5 years. So just keep that mind. So just keep that in mind for us. Um, and then the other thing I wanted to talk to y'all about before I start diving into some of these questions, which I can see in the chat, is if you are an employer and you are hiring folks or you already have people on board, here's what I would recommend for you. Everybody talks about the H-1B, and it is what I call the workhorse of the work authorizations. But H-1Bs are really limited in that you can only get a new H-1B through the H-1B lottery, right? So that happens in March of every year. It's this race to get, yourself entered into the lottery, and then we wait till the end of March for you to get selected in the lottery, and then if you're not selected, what happens, right? And for some folks, if you are selected, that's great, but then we still need to think about long term, what are we going to do for your green card? So I am encouraging employees and my clients especially, don't be afraid of the O1, which is extraordinary ability, non-immigrant temporary status, allows for people to work. Don't be afraid of the EB2, national interest waiver. I was having this conversation with some colleagues earlier today. The EB2 national interest waiver does not solve all of the backlog problems. It solves some of them for some people, but it does not solve all of the problems for all of the people. Like, there's no one visa category that does. But don't be afraid of it. Don't get freaked out by the whole national interest piece of it. We can certainly walk you through that, do an analysis, see if that is something that is helpful or would be helpful for your employees to one, do we have an underlying status that will keep them work authorized? And two, will the national interest waiver frankly get them an approved I-140 quicker? If they have an approved I-140 quicker, then we know if they're on an H-1B, we can extend their H-1B for 3 years instead of 1 year past their 6-year max. So I do think the national interest waiver certainly has its place for some employees. Certainly not all, but definitely for some. So that is one thing that I wanted to talk about today with y'all. So I see we've got some questions. Let's start kind of diving into them. And first and foremost, y'all know I do not have processing times memorized. So we're gonna kind of look and see what some of these questions are. Oh, let's see, what do we got here? Ash, FCB, you had a case transferred to a non-local field office. I'm assuming non-local means maybe not the closest field office to you. I'm assuming that's what that means. I-45 and I-130 about 1.5 months ago. Is that good? So here's what I tell people that are working with me in my firm when their case is transferred. When your case is transferred, it means that someone's touched your file, which is always good, right? Typically, cases are transferred, one, because you've moved and now you're in the jurisdiction of a different local CIS office. So maybe that's a case that you've moved. I don't know. Also, it could be because the local office that had your case originally has a tremendous backlog, and the case that the office that your case was moved to maybe doesn't have as much of a backlog. So that will absolutely help get your application moving and grooving and hopefully on someone's desk a little bit quicker. So I generally tend to think that cases being transferred, sort of all over the country to different local offices is a good thing. Because again, it means that someone has physically put their hands on your file, and that's always good, and it's better than being on the shelf. So now I think that's a good thing. Does it mean that you're going to get an approval? I have no idea, but I do think it's a good thing in that someone is looking at your file. What other questions do we have here? Y'all know I'm a super slow scroller. Let's see here. Someone else has asked, can we file for U.S. citizenship if we have our conditional permanent residence, if we have filed to remove that? So yes, you can, as long as you meet the citizenship requirements. So if you meet the citizenship requirements and CIS is still processing your application to remove the conditions of your green card, meaning taking it from a 2-year green card to a 10-year green card, yes, you can. The better question is, should you? And that is a big old I don't know, because I don't know your file and I'm not your specific attorney. But the better question is, should you? If there's any sort of question as to whether or not we think the underlying removal of conditions application is going to be approved, then I absolutely would not recommend it. And that is really a question that I would encourage you to, if you're working with an attorney, have that conversation with your attorney, because they are going to know your case file the best. And so they can really kind of walk you through that analysis and what they see in your case and whatnot. What other question do we have here? When the interviewer asks for court documents, what exactly do they want? And do they want I think there's a word missing also. So if you are being interviewed with a CIS officer, I'm going to assume this is for a green card. When you're being interviewed by a USCIS officer and they see that there is a criminal history and that you've checked yes to some of those questions about your past, they want certified court documents from the charging document all the way to the final disposition. So from the very first document that is essentially opened up in your criminal file all the way to the last document that essentially says what happened. And so by what happened, I mean, did you take a plea deal? Were you found innocent? Were you found guilty? Was the case nolo prost? Like what was the final result? So, having worked inside the agency, the agency can be a little bit skeptical, right? Like they're not just going to believe me as a lawyer when I say, oh, don't worry about it. They've totally fine, right? I wish they would, but they don't. And I get it. They want to see certified court copies from the court itself. So if you are living close to the court, you can always go down, you can always essentially go walk into the courthouse and ask the clerk, how do I get certified copies of these documents? If you're no longer living in the jurisdiction where you had the criminal issue, you can always call the court clerk's office. Or you can also go online and they can guide you into how to get certified copies. And it's not just copies that you want certified copies. So I hope that's helpful. What else do we have? What else do we have here? I'm gonna check some of the other places. We are live currently, y'all, on LinkedIn. We are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube, and we are also live on Instagram. So if y'all have any questions, you are welcome to put those in the chat. The other thing that I wanted to tell, hold on. What do we got here? Do they want expungement also? So here's the thing. Immigration wants everything. They want absolutely everything. But I would recommend, if you have any sort of criminal history, that you work with an attorney who can look at those documents for you and figure out what the possible impact is on your immigration case. So I would not simply just hand them over the documents without having an idea of what the impact would be. You're welcome to have a consultation with me, have a consultation with a lawyer that's closer to you, although I do work with clients nationally. It's obviously completely up to you, but I would recommend that if you have a criminal history, minor or large, that you have a conversation with an immigration lawyer who works with folks that have criminal histories and can do an assessment and an analysis on the impact that it may have on your case, because it may determine whether or not you want to move forward, which is totally fine. And on that note, I will say, in terms of consultations, my office is having a first ever Labor Day consultation special. We are taking 20% off of the cost of our consultations. And so we are having, in addition to that, we're scheduling our special Labor Day consultations on this upcoming Friday, September 6th, and Saturday, September 7th. My office generally does not do consultations on Saturdays or on the weekends, but we wanted to run this special for you all because we know that some people can't or have a very, very difficult time getting off work or figuring out a work schedule and, getting on our calendar to get a consultation. So we are combining this one really kind of a full Saturday with consultations, and most of Friday. Some slots on Friday are already done. They've already been taken. So we are doing 20% off our normal consultation fee. You can schedule those up to this upcoming Tuesday, September 3rd, and then your consultation will either be Friday or Saturday. And Sharmili, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hopefully I am. Sorry if I'm not. You asked how you get in touch with me. There is a link in my bio, and there is a special link if you want to take advantage of the Labor Day consultation special. And it is in the link in the bio, and it's a first link, and it says Labor Day 2024 consultation special. So you can certainly reach out to us that way if you want to get your consultation scheduled. We're more than happy to chat. And then Lucas, you wanted to know more about EB1. If you put a little bit more in the chat about what you want to know about EB1, I will start talking about it. And then, if you have kind of real specific questions about what it is, what it does, I can certainly tackle those for you too. EB1 is an employment-based green card application. It is we file an EB1. It is, I guess, sort of the EB1s that I work with the most are EB1 extraordinary ability and EB1 intra-company transfers. So our EB1 extraordinary abilities are essentially for people who have risen to the top of their specific industry, and they are considered, and it's a very legal term I'm about to throw at you, kind of the best thing since sliced bread in their particular industry. We have the immigration gives us very specific criteria that we have to show. We have a choice. So that's one of the reasons I like the, EB1 extraordinary ability. We have a choice. We have to show 3 of these criteria. And we get to choose which ones. So that I think is lovely. And it really is, you can use it across the board for all different professions. STEM is huge for EB1, but STEM is not the only type of case that gets approved on EB1. You can have business owners, you can have high-level business folks who are just amazing at what they do within their specific industry. It is not limited to service professionals. It's not limited to scientists. It's not limited to doctors. It is really, how are you seen by your colleagues in your specific industry? How do you reach the top of your industry? That is what EB1 extraordinary ability looks at. So when I talk to my clients about EB1 extraordinary ability, we're looking backward. We are looking at what you have done in your industry. How have people recognized you within your industry? Have they written about the work that you've done in the industry? Do they know about the work that you've done in your industry? Have you judged others in your industry? So EB1 really looks backward, so that the Immigration Service, when they are finished looking at the applications, is, wow, this person is really at the top of their industry. It's super clear to us it's super clear what their industry is, and it's super clear how they have positively impacted their industry. So EB1s really look backward. And then based on your performance in the past, the Immigration Service, when they approve you, are confident that you will be able to move forward in that same industry and have the same level of continued impact, right? The other EB1 category that I deal with quite a bit are multinational managers that have typically moved from a company overseas outside of the US to a related company in the US. They've typically already been here for a couple of years working for that company, and now they want to stay here indefinitely on a green card. So that green card category of EB1C, multinational manager, multinational executive or manager, really is a very specific and very niche carve out for folks that are coming into the US and working at a company that is related to a company that was outside of the US. And so with that, we need to show that somebody was a manager or was operating at an executive level within the company overseas, as well as here in the US company. If they are not already here in the US, then we need to show that the position that they will have in the US puts them in an executive or a managerial position within the US company. So those applications bypass what we call the perm process. So we don't have to advertise through the Department of Labor. So it cuts off an entire process, right? So, which is great, because that advertising with the Department of Labor, dealing with the Department of Labor, that part of the process is right now taking roughly 2 years. So it cuts off a tremendous part of the process. And so it gets, when you get your place in line, when you get your priority date, it's great. It also, if you're here on an H underneath, like you're here on an H-1B, once that EB-1 is approved, it allows us to extend your H-1B for 3 years at a clip beyond your 6-year maximum. So in that sense, doing an EB-1A or C is super helpful and really moves your green card application along. What people sort of sometimes don't understand about the EB-1s and that particular application is there is a step after that application. So after that application, we still have to file an adjustment of status if you're here in the US, or we've got to consular process you through a consulate. So just getting that approval notice does not get you work authorization. It doesn't get you your green card. There's a whole other process after that. So, I hope that sort of gave you a good overview. But if you are curious as to whether or not you qualify for an EB-1 and you want to know more about that, you are welcome to schedule yourself a consultation. And if you schedule it before Tuesday, you can schedule it for this upcoming Friday and Saturday, and you'll get offering at 20% off of the normal consultation rates. And so that will probably help. Let's see if we have any other questions. I actually wasn't going to stay on that long, you guys. What else? Any other questions? Let me see here. And I may go on again later on this evening. I haven't quite decided. Because I know for us in the US, it's a long weekend, so people might be out and about and hanging out. Although if you're in South Florida, where I am, I suspect quite a few people are inside because the weather is not so usual South Florida-y. It is a little It's a little overcast and kind of rainy, but that's okay. Well, y'all, I don't see any more questions, so which is fine. Y'all know how I am. What I will do then, if I don't see any more questions, I'm going to log off, and then I will add some links for you all if you want to get your consultation scheduled. We can do that, and then if you click the link and schedule by Tuesday, we can get you on the calendar Friday or Saturday. I think 5th or 6th or the 7th, the 6th and the 7th, Friday the 6th, Saturday the 7th. And again, my firm generally does not do consultations on Saturdays, but I wanted to specifically open up a weekend day for y'all because I know some people's schedules are really hectic during the week. So I don't see any more questions. I'm checking every place. So I don't see any more questions. So I will put some links up on the social media channels, and you all can click those in order to get your consultation scheduled. And I will probably go live a little later this evening. Not guaranteed quite yet though. And then I will see you later. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, guys.